Hello everyone and welcome to this crash course on pragmatics. My name is Vahid and I'm a PhD researcher in the field of linguistics with a master's degree in applied linguistics. In this course we are going to cover the major topics in pragmatics. We'll start by seeing how pragmatics is related to different areas in linguistics as a scientific study of language. Then we'll get to the definition of context and different types of context, since pragmatics is fundamentally about the context of use and how the context of use contributes to meaning. Then we'll get to Deixis or Indexicality, that is pointing to things, people, places, and time through language. And then we'll cover reference and inference, that is how people refer to things or to other people, and also how listeners and readers infer the meanings behind those utterances. Then we'll cover presuppositions, and we'll also get to Gricean meaning, that is Gricean Maxims, Conversational Implicature, and Cooperative Principles. After that, we'll talk about one of the most important theories in pragmatics, which is Austin's speech act theory, in which we deal with how we do things with words. And finally, we'll talk briefly about politeness theory, and how it is cultural dependent, and different notions of face. But let's start with a brief definition of pragmatics. So pragmatics is the study of meanings that people convey when they use utterances or signs. It's also called the study of the intended speaker's meaning. And it can be said that pragmatics attempts to analyze how it happens that often more is communicated than is said. You can see two signs in this slide. The left-hand side is a fork and a spoon and a circle, which we can tell it's a plate. If you see the sign on the side of a road, you would most probably tell that there is a restaurant nearby, although you can't find the word restaurant anywhere in this sign. So this is how you associate this sign with a restaurant on the side of a road. Then there is another sign on the right-hand side, which is just a red triangle and drawings of two people apparently walking in it. So based on the knowledge of the world, the cultural knowledge, traffic law, we know that this might mean that you should be cautious because there is a school crossing ahead, for instance. So pragmatics is a study of these meanings, that is how we infer the meanings based on the signs that we get, although these things are not explicitly said. But how pragmatics is related to different areas of linguistics is also an interesting issue. So in linguistics, we have the study of sounds, phonetics and phonology, the study of structure, morphology and syntax, and the study of meaning, semantics and pragmatics. So in phonetics, linguists are concerned more with the production and interpretation of sounds, the actual sound as physical objects, let's say. So for instance, the word bag would consist of 3 sounds, 2 consonants, and 1 vowel. So in phonetics, they would describe them in terms of manner of articulation, that is, how they are produced. So for instance, the sound b is called a stop sound because the air stops behind your lips and then it is released. In terms of place of articulation, it's a bilabial sound, that is, you use your upper and lower lips to produce this sound. So that is what phonetics is about. Then there is phonology, in which they study sound systems and sound pattern, that is, how different sounds affect each other. For instance, a word like bags, this S is pronounced Z here, just because the preceding sound is a voiced sound. G is a voiced sound. That is why it also affects the production of the following consonant and turns it into a voiced sound, Z. Unlike cats, for instance. For cats, there is a T at the end of cat. It's not voiced, so it also affects the following sound and makes it remain as an unvoiced sound, like se. Then there is morphology, which is about the structure of words, that is the meaningful parts of words. So in morphology we have morphemes, that is the smallest meaningful unit of a language. So for instance, in this word bags we have two morphemes, bag and this s. We cannot break bag down into other meaningful parts, so we cannot just say ba or just ag. They're not meaningful. So bag would be the least, or let's say the smallest meaningful unit there is. And s is also meaningful because it adds to the meaning of bag and makes it plural. So these are two morphemes. In teacher, for instance, the verb teach is followed by the suffix er and makes it into a noun. So it changes the parts of the speech. In danger is the same. So we have in as a prefix and then danger as a noun. It becomes a verb. Syntax is another important topic in linguistics and deals with the structure of sentences, let's say. So how we put together these words to make grammatically correct sentences. So this sentence is one of the famous textbook examples of syntax made by Chomsky in 1957. The colorless green ideas sleep furiously. Although this sentence doesn't make that much sense, but it is grammatically correct after all. So syntax deals with how we group these words or sentences in using constituents. Like for example, colorless green ideas is one chunk or one constituent. Then there is a verb and there is an adverb. So syntax deals with these groupings. Semantics deals with meaning, but let's say literal meaning or dictionary meaning of words and phrases. So semantically, if you ask someone, do you have the time? What they would say is that, no, I don't. Nobody has. Nobody owns the time, let's say. So it would literally mean, do you own the time? Do you possess the time? So at a literal level. But pragmatically, that is the intentions of the speaker, we would say, do you have the time means, tell me the time, please. So it's an indirect way of asking someone to tell you the time. That is how pragmatics deals with these issues and meaning. Another issue in pragmatics is presuppositions. For example, if someone asks you, when did you stop using drugs? You can see that in this question there are two presuppositions. One is that, well, you used drugs and then you stopped using them. So if you answer this question like, I don't know, 2 months ago, it means that you have accepted all these presuppositions here. And this can be this kind of questions can be used in courts or by detectives or by other people. Just like at a court, someone asks you, okay, why didn't you stop when you hit the deer? The question presupposes that first of all you hit the deer and then you didn't stop. So answering that question would imply that you agree with all those presuppositions. So this is how pragmatics is related to these different areas. But now the core issue in pragmatics is context, because the interpretation of what meanings the speaker wants to convey using particular words is often influenced by factors such as the listener's assumptions or the context. Now in pragmatics, 3 types of context can be differentiated. Linguistic context, or sometimes called as cotext, which is about the text that accompanies the phrase or the idiom or the word in question. That is a surrounding linguistic area, that is the words or phrases preceding it or following the expression, that helps us understand which meaning out of 2 or 3 or 10 possible meanings to pick. Then there is a physical context or situational context, which is about the physical environment, timing, or the situation you're in, how we can see things, feel things, hear things. They can also help you pick the meaning which has been intended by the speaker. Then there is background or cultural knowledge. That is how we know things work in the world, how we know people and what they mean, but when they ask a question, they are just being polite because of their culture or just because they want to know something really. So you know how to pick those meanings based on the knowledge that you have of people, of culture, of society. Now, examples that I've provided here is actually the same example, but then let's say if which meaning can you pick? So if I just tell you he kicked the bucket, what is it that you would get? Would you interpret it as like he passed away or he died, or he just physically like kicked the bucket, that is using his feet? He just kicked the bucket. You never know until I provide you with some clue or context. So if I provide that context linguistically, I would say, for instance, I was walking in the park and then two people were playing with the bucket and one of them just kicked the bucket. So you would immediately know that this kick the bucket doesn't mean that he just died or passed away, because I've been describing it using language. Another one would be physical situation. That is the same sentence. Now imagine you are at the park. I don't need to tell you all those things. You just see them for yourself. That you see there's a playground. Children are playing with the buckets of sand. And then I just say, look, funny, he kicked the bucket. And you would realize that you should expect someone kicking the bucket, like physically, literally, because of the environment. Although it's not always like that. It might happen that it just means like he passed away. But yeah, this is the most probable meaning. So background and cultural. Imagine that you're close to the hospital, and then some people come out of the hospitals. One of them is just mad or sad or something, and then he says, "Oh yeah, the dude just kicked the bucket last night." So based on the knowledge that you have of hospitals, let's say, and you know that in hospitals people just don't play, they just might die as well, unfortunately, but yeah, you would probably pick this kind of meaning. Or imagine that you have a friend who has a very, very old, let's say, grandfather. He's been ill for months and he's been weak. And then you call him, "Hey, how you doing? How's it going?" And he says, "Yeah, my grandfather just kicked the bucket." Well, I won't use that example for my grandfather, but anyways, my grandfather just kicked the bucket last night. So what you get would be, okay, I know that his grandfather has been ill, weak, and in hospital, so the meaning that I would get would be, yeah, he just passed away. And then you will offer your condolences, I guess. So yeah, context. Now, another important issue is that without this context, it becomes really difficult for us to understand. Now, for instance, there are some very common words in our language that cannot be interpreted at all if we don't know the context, especially the physical context of the speaker. So these are words such as it, this, those boxes, these boxes, he, or now, soon, tomorrow, last night, or here, there, near that. These words are called Deictic Expressions, or Deixis, or Indexicality. The Deixis in Greek means pointing via language. So you point towards a person, or some point in time, or a place. So imagine that you hear the sentence without any further context, that you'll have to bring it back tomorrow because she isn't here today. Out of context, this sentence is really vague. It contains a large number of deictic expressions, like you, it, tomorrow, she, here, today. And they all rely on knowledge of the immediate physical context. That is, you should know, for example, if the utterance has been produced right today, right now, or today, then you will know tomorrow would be really tomorrow. And you should know who they refer to by she or by it. So we have these different types of deictic expression. Person, which is not just person, it can be a thing. Deixis, temporal, is about time. And also spatial, deixis or deictic expressions. So they have to be only interpreted in terms of which person, place, or time the speaker has in mind. And and we usually make a broad distinction between what is marked as close to the speaker, like this, here, now, and what is distant, that, there, then. So we can also indicate whether the movement is away from the speaker's location or towards the speaker's location. So if you're looking for someone and she appears moving towards you, you can say, here she comes. If, however, she's moving away from you in the distance, you're more likely to say, there she goes. So the same deictic effect explains the different situations in which you would tell someone to go to bed versus come to bed. In the next video, we'll talk about reference and inference. Stay tuned.